Hello and hey, this is Zerogokin Reviews, and today we are observing, analyzing, criticizing, and most importantly, stumbling into nonsensical tangents about the Snail Shell Tapigal milk tea girl. Based on illustrations by Dog Driver, developed and manufactured by Snail Shell, who are, yet again, getting a feature on this show. Are they gonna get more? Well, this is their second swimsuit figure. I have not talked about this one. And I won't. So she'll just be around sometimes, and you'll just have to accept that. However, this was open for pre-order and released around the same time as a different Snail Shell figure. So look forward for something else. I'll just give the rundown right now. These were designed by the Bird Binary guy, which isn't a problem. The guy's made some really cool stuff. The problem is, these just don't leave much of an impression on me. As a figure, the joints are fine, but the material is noticeably worse than their typical output. And there are design elements that I quite like, but there are also ones that I really don't. So it evens out, afflicting apathy upon my mind. And no, this isn't just about the furry shit. I can accept that as these just being Man with a Mission members. We are going to talk about this figure, because that's what the video is about. Who would have guessed? I might be being culturally insensitive here, but I'm going to assume she's a gyaru. I'm not a fashion expert, so the following bit of exposition may be inaccurate. Gyaru is a fashion subculture. It's also what you'd call a person partaking in said subculture, as the word is a transliteration of the English slang word gal. For the sake of my mental welfare, I also will be referring to as gal instead of gyaru from now on. And no, in this context, the male version of a gal is not a guy, it's a gal-o or gyaru-o. The gal subculture began in 1970s Japan as a rejection to traditional Japanese beauty standards and expectations, which I'm all for. Fuck expectations. Not everyone wants to be Yamato Nadeshiko. All things considered, it's probably an extremely safe bet to assume she's a gal. She is named Tapigal, although for some reason that name is not present on the figure box and manual unless you got the Ami Ami version, which you probably did, but I did not. Also, she looks like this. Tan skin, blonde hair, classic gal traits. Not to mention this outfit. Do you understand? It's a very flashy outfit that is neither modest nor particularly conformist. Also, classic gal traits. Maybe not modern gal traits on that last bit. Culture is pretty fluid. I know it's been weird, but you can blame my gal hesitance here on Raita. She's not a gal, she's just half Brazilian. But whether or not she's a gal, she looks great. The design feels thematically interesting, or at least unconventional. How often do you see fashionably armed cyberpunk gal? In figure form, no less. No, seriously, I have no idea. The translation from illustration to figure is questionable. Not as in it's bad, but rather as in, I have a question, and that question is... what? These are all I have, and none of them are conclusive enough to give me much to discuss. I do like that she isn't covered in barcodes and QR codes, and changing the hair from white to blonde is also a fine alteration if gal is the desired outcome. That's it. Sculptwork is more defined than usual, probably because she actually has more to define. If there wasn't artwork on the box, the cyber details could help sell the articulation cuts as part of the design, especially considering some of Dog Driver's other illustrations. But not everything can get a pass. Before I barrage you with pedantic criticism that sounds a lot more negative than it actually is, I want to stress that again, I think she looks really good. There just are some cracks. Now that that's out of the way, there are some uncouth things I could say, and I will say them. Unga bunga, awooga awooga, hamana hamana, damn girl, that's a tight-ass G-string. We get some camel action like we're in a To Love Ru manga page. So I know it's Toraburu, but much like Cybaster, I choose to pronounce it incorrectly. Foreshadowing. Yeah, I don't like this detail. Bit out of left field considering the same kind of definition does not extend to other areas for visual cohesion. Moreover, the opposite seems to be true for the illustrations. Granted, I am not particularly knowledgeable about the adherence of garments. That being said, this slight curve modestly bothers me. It also bothers me that I thought she had the weird robot toes gamer girl feet like Raiden from Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. Although Raiden from Metal Gear Rising Revengeance's weird robot toes gamer girl feet have high heels. He really do be Metal Gear Rising. She may or may not have.
I want to rephrase this tangent. So the problem I have here is the way these are sculpted doesn't really make sense. The folds indicate this is a garment and not robot legs, but the toes are clearly distinguishable, which is not how socks look, unless they're toe socks, which are disgusting, and would not have a consistent fold going through the toes as there is no such continuity between them. So from a logical and artistic standpoint, I take issue with the scope work here. Furthermore, I take full offense of the flagrant fetishization on display, and I condemn this immoral depiction. Not on the basis of fact, but on the basis of contempt. Or whatever. Back to the other guy.
It's weird I'm spending so much time talking about feet. I'm more well known for having tangents on posterior elements, like this one. Her ass is indeed fat, but her ass is also badass, as in it's bad. In figure form, the fatness of her ass and this outfit creates some rather vexing details. The undershell of the ass is visible on almost every front-facing pose on the box, because even when trying to show the figure at its best for promotional purposes, such a detail is unavoidable. What I'm saying is the continuity of the ass is kinda ass. I mean that in a bad way. However, deeper discussion is asinine. As I discussed last time, this type of outfit design isn't conducive for creating aspirational asses in conjunction with articulation, which in this case for a Snail Shell release, articulation is surprisingly limited. If it weren't for the double joints, it would be Figma tier, which isn't necessarily bad, mind you. Eye articulation is a usual standout with these, although if you're fussy about accurate eye placement, the eyes can be pretty frustrating. Not a criticism, it's just the result of having such a feature. I guess the shoulder design also has more range on the Z-axis. Is it interesting? Yeah. Is its range more accurate? Yeah. Do I like it? Like, aside from praising the sun, what pose do I need this for? Especially since there's not a lot you can do considering her chest articulation is bust-ed because she's bust-E. The range is pretty minimal, but the trade-off is that the continuity, while not seamless, doesn't feel intrusive. Unlike the Artec Lucia, which had a lot of range, but was very intrusive and fucking weird. A way to deal with this, and I think something that this does lack, is extending parts. On a Figma, you can pull out the shoulder joint for more range, or push it in for less intrusive joints, which is a feature I moderately wish this had, with not just these shoulders, but other parts as well. On the other hand, with the size we're dealing with here, this is possibly the best you can get. Anyway. Her face is great. Her other face is also great. They're not overly expressive, but not every figure needs to include a wacky yelling face. When I first saw the prototypes for this, I was over the moon about the face, which is kind of a problem. For me, not the figure. In the prototype, she looks like she'd heat-seek my dick and annihilate it over international waters. Now she, doesn't look like she'd do that, which is a shame. Not that it's bad. If anything, what they went with is better suiting, but I have my preferences. I hope they make another version of this, with this face in the Player 2 colors. Call it milk. Let's talk about the hands. Aside from the open ones, you get two pairs of holding hands, one to hold things this doesn't come with, and the other to hold These are model kits that are somewhat similar to Little Armory kits. Building these is rather unpleasant due to the plastic being quite hard and the parts being very small. you're gonna want to use some glue and at least 2 decals as well. But visually, they've taken the idea of futuristic guns that fire bubble tea deadly serious, and it fucking rules. These look better than any gun I've seen in Cyberpunk 2077, and I mean it. Because I haven't played it, but I can't imagine them being any better than this. Really stellar stuff here, even if I'm not sure what they're for. I have a question. The box calls this health operation. What does that mean? I wouldn't associate bubble tea with health, as it's not very good for you. Or is that the point? Is it an operation to disrupt health, like some kind of caloric missile? Foreshadowing. I have no idea, and I've definitely had one of those bobas in my lungs. Oh wait, no, those are called alveolus. That being said, this isn't where my brain initially went, because in Japan, there's this thing called delivery health, which is essentially Amazon, but it's for your dick. Does that make sense? It's some kind of probably online prostitution service. My knowledge of this comes entirely from pornography, which isn't really a reliable representation of reality. However, it would explain the womb barcode. Although I probably shouldn't make assumptions. So anyway, it says health operation number 1. So hopefully this is the dawn of a new line, because I'd like to see more. There are some pretty neat guns by Dog Driver. She has unholy feet, because maybe you don't want to use the stand. Why? Well, it sucks. To be fair, it's not their fault, because it kind of always does. Unless we get some kind of scale figure tier stand, it's gonna be this unstable pain in the ass. Otherwise, visually, I think it looks kind of neat. Much less intrusive than the usual black circle shit. But like, man, dude, bro, buddy, put a hole in her back. Like, she's already got some, but one that I can stick a proper stand into would be Gooderino, because claw stands are uggo. Speaking of a lack of features, if you own the robot build Seawolf, you can attach it to her like an exosuit, but I do not. And to be quite frank, I would not. It looks substantially wacky in a bad way, except the dog. I like the dog. Guts, Mazinger, Ludens. Over.
Future Gokin here. Hey, you stupid little bitch. It's time for GOkimpressions. Really living up to being a stupid little bitch, aren't you? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's my, or our, as the Gokin Collective's impressions, hosted by yours truly, Future Gokin. Someone suggested I put these in videos, which is not a bad idea considering not a single living human being would click on a video about Cybuster's disc cutter. I can hear the wind calling me. Cybuster is a cool-ass Super Robot Wars original that has glorious Dubin vibes, but is obviously distinct and is just great. Aside from the one detail that, despite everyone assuming it's called Cybuster, because that sounds like something you'd actually name something, it's officially Cybaster. And you know what? The Cybastard who decided that can fuck right off. I refuse to call it that. Anyway, this is the blade wielded by Cybuster, the disc cutter, or said by Masaki Ando himself. It was made by Amakuni, who also made a Super Robot Wars Gal figure I wanted to get, but decided against since it didn't look sufficiently chonky. Now we're talking. This is made for the Shin Uchi line at 1/20th scale, presumably so you can pretend to be a robot. Despite how the other version looks, I'm not a prop guy. This is the one other prop I own, so I don't know a whole lot about stuff like this. Is it well priced? Are the features good? I have no idea. Visually, it does look like a sword from a figure that was just scaled up, which I prefer over it being a disgusting chrome. Although there are some concessions made, presumably for features. The blade, however, looks deceptively simplistic. I find it very appealing that despite looking just like a figure sword, turning on the light reveals the fancy runes, which don't look how they're supposed to. Nonetheless, it's visually very cool. I'm not particularly familiar with all of Cybuster's material, but the sword probably doesn't actually light up like this. It's more of a representation of the prana energy enveloping the blade. The sword light can also become red, which I don't remember that ever being a thing, but I won't question it. Aside from lighting up, you also get the features you'd expect, like all kind of lines from the games, consisting of his moves and some extras. Additionally, you get funny sword sounds if you move the sword certain ways. Of course, you can't have something like this without a theme button. This is the limited version. So magic circle for you. Which stabbing this beneath him is the first step in delivering a devastating pelvic thrust, the Akashic Buster. It can also be done from the front, which is less cool, but I can do it without showing you my feet. Those are my relatively brief GOkimpressions. Make of it what you will.
Fun fact about tapioca milk tea, it's used by artists to make scat fetish art with all this shit. Overall, for an articulated figure of an original design, it's pretty good. Its price is similar to an SH figure arts, although prices for those are all over the place for reasons I don't understand. So I can recommend it if you like how it looked and don't mind the price. Otherwise, you know what to do. Like and subscribe. That's about it. Thank you to the patrons. This patron is like totes a fucking dumbass. Of course, thank you to Photon Lab Reviews for their recording contributions, and I'll see y'all next time.